Did you invite another member to that meeting?
I can only have two.
Did you already
Oh,
invite?
no, I didn't know who, yeah, so,
Thursday
I'm like-
morning.
Tell you what, Thursday morning, yeah.
We're good.
Tell you
we're
the.
good?
We're good?
Okay.
Okay.
I need to ask you some insurance.
Right. Okay, good morning. Good, oh my word, it's fantastic. That's a good start.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our special work meeting tonight. It's gonna be a long night.
So you said morning, afternoon, and night, all in one
All in
sentence.
one.
Hey, we were in and out of here last time. If
Not
you need to take
too
over, just let me know.
Oh, I knew that was
Waiting for that, we've all been waiting for that.
Yeah.
We've all been waiting for that. Okay, will somebody keep a timer on each of us and how long we talk? Then we'll decide about
When
who's,
you look at me and I'm like,
somebody keep a timer on this thing.
Showing up on my work.
Just watch Tammy's poker face, she'll let you know.
I'm so good at it.
On that note, if we're gonna turn someone's chair, okay, we're gonna get going on item 2, administrative reports on the Game Point property. Tammy, you're gonna run this?
Yes, I'm just gonna get this started. So in November of 2019, council had approved an initial MDA for the Game Point Entertainment Facility, which was a 40,000 square foot entertainment complex. As you're aware, over the last few months, we've been having conversations about how the economy has changed, situations have changed, and so we've kind of drawn up a new plan for this development. And it will have a mix of office, retail, and an entertainment component. With those changes to this area, this development, it will require not just an amendment to the development agreement, but more of almost like a restatement. And so today we have offered some new renderings and a site plan from the developer. And we just want to go through those and then go through, we have a very basic draft of the MDA that's been provided for each of you. And we'd just like you to have conversations amongst yourselves and with the developer today to try to tighten up this development agreement, making sure that it contains the components that council would like to see in this development and that we are all on the same page moving forward. We do have Aaron Osmond here today representing the developer. And so with that, I'd just like to turn the time over to this group to discuss what they would like to see in this MDA. And if you would like to be taken through the site plan and the development concept, we can start with that. It should be up on the screen.
Wanna do that? Wanna start with that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yep.
We talked about some of those pieces in our conversation with Michael. Is it coming up on that screen or is it a?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking, I wanted to make sure I wasn't just waiting for that. I think the first thing I wanna say is that myself and our engineer and design group person came and met with Michael Malloy, had a sit-down conversation about the site plan and an opportunity to kind of hear his feedback about, community engagement, to create a destination location to make it more inviting relative to how we're utilizing both landscape and outdoor seating, for example, things like that bring it in. Also leveraging the fact that you're on major thoroughfares there along Harriman Main Street and Miller Crossing Drive, so from a visibility perspective, he was very strong about not having buildings with their back or their butt to the street and it only looks like the back of a building, the idea was to create it to be more aesthetically pleasing and that there was activity that was taking place on both sides of the buildings. So that's how we reflected some of these design components back to the council, to try to be in the spirit of that. What Michael asked for versus what we provided is a little different, meaning that he asked for, a very significant, I would call it outdoor landscaping and engagement strategy, and we're trying to be conservative around it from a cost perspective, but also incorporating those elements into it as best we can in the plan. We've included in the appendix section examples from our designer about what we're thinking about how we can accomplish outdoor seating, especially around the restaurant components of the project. And you can see those pictures, the utilization of trellis, the connection between the two major restaurant buildings, so that there's restaurant components on both sides and a breezeway in between, the use of seating on the outer sections of the building, engagement of, seating and park elements, around those buildings, especially around our office retail as well as the core restaurant areas. And then just pulling back a little bit from the sidewalk to allow for more green space and opportunity to do some more stuff in there as we get closer to our final designs. That conceptually is what we've tried to reflect in the plan. We've stayed consistent with the original site plan elements. None of that has changed from the last meeting that we had, but we're trying to reflect those design recommendations into this, so that it will have a more positive likelihood of getting through the planning commission and then back to you guys for final approval. Any questions about that?
Maybe just have Michael speak to the landscape in the car.
I really appreciated Aaron's courtesy, and I think these images that he's showing as a type, or maybe a quality, I think these are fantastic, yeah.
Awesome. We hoped you'd like it, and we know that you would like more, Michael, but we feel like this is a good balance. And that's what we intended to accomplish, was that balance between developer and planning commission, try to find that balance, and we think we found it.
There's a restaurant I go to up in Lake Oswego, that is literally two restaurants connected with a trellis across the middle. They both have outdoor seating right there. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Right? I love the idea.
Our tenants are loving the idea too, so we think that we've got a winning combination of potential interest from, this bespoke tenants that we've talked about. But we haven't signed contracts with them, but there's a lot of interest in this kind of a plan, and what they like also is the uniqueness of the multiple different elements all within the same development. The two-story office retail with the potential of daily customers from that location, the retail drive-through elements, the regular retail, plus the restaurant entertainment components, all within the same project. It's quite unique that way. And we think it's staying true to the request of having that roughly 35% of our total tenant base being at least restaurant and or entertainment oriented as part of our design plan.
I also think you found better images than I did, Aaron, so,
That's awesome.
that's good.
So my question forever and always is, does the agreement attorney tell us, say that this is what actually happens? Pretty pictures are pretty pictures, but
Yeah, so we would be removing the old exhibits and site plans and replacing it with this, stating that they need to comply with the design elements in there. We'll go through in more detail, we just kind of wanted to know if this was acceptable, and then we can fine tune it, so that way we have percentages that are in the plans, and then the layout wouldn't change from what they're presenting to you.
my only other comment is, good job. I really like the mixture and the layout. Looks really good.
Awesome.
This is unique to the city. We don't have anything like this with the outdoor seating elements that we don't right now. There's no outdoor seating that I'm aware of.
Well, what really hit us, Michael said, was destination. Creating a destination. We originally had that with the Game Point concept.
Yeah.
But this creates it in a different way, especially around the restaurant piece.
I mean, it's not just a line of,
Correct.
sorry to use this term, but strip mall stuff, right?
Yeah.
The dividable stuff, there's 3 of those, but we have office building, we have separate restaurant spaces that look different than the others. And I think that looks really good.
Cool.
I have one question, you don't have to answer it tonight,
Okay.
but something that I'd consider is, there is a demand for office space. Big demand. Is there, has there been any consideration, or has anybody even asked about possibly creating a 3-story office building?
We haven't talked about it. We do know that there is office demand, but it's sometimes bespoke and their demands are unique. And this space could certainly accommodate anywhere from a 5,000 to 20,000 foot office location. And it can be upstairs and downstairs, so we have a lot of space in that building for office. If that's something, if we can show that there's enough demand to justify it, we'd be open to exploring that.
And again, I
I just.
have no data for you, I got no nothing, just as a consideration that, we just don't have office space anywhere right now, and,
And I don't mind working that into the MDA somehow, but they
Yeah.
can go to 3-story.
yeah.
I mean, it won't hurt us at all.
No.
I mean, I'm okay with 2. I think 2 is a great
You go, as far as I'm concerned, you can go as high as you want with an office
Yep.
building.
Right,
Office or hotel, go as high as you want.
awesome.
The only concern with going high is parking.
But we do have a really good tool in our parking ordinance that allows for a parking impact study. Clearly with office and restaurant use, you're gonna have, daytime versus nighttime, so you're gonna end up with shared parking. And our commission has always responded very well, as long as the study supports your requests, they've approved those modifications, so.
By the way, we've already reached out to, I forgot the name of the parking study group. The one that did the same one for the auto mall. Anyway, that group, they're quite well known. They know that we're gonna be asking for, in the next phase here, to do a memo relative to that, and they feel pretty confident that we're gonna be within the parameters that are needed.
One of the things that Aaron and I talked about, and again, really appreciated your time, they recognize that they need to mature this concept, but they've spent quite a bit of money already in the previous iteration of this site. And until there was a level of comfort from the council, you were concerned about really kind of refining the site plan. You and I talked about maybe focusing on these vignettes, these images, which you've done. So we'll see some further refinement, but again, he's looking for a level of kind of comfort from the city in whether or not, they should expend further.
For me, if it takes more time than the deadlines we have on there to do it right, at least me personally, I'm fine with that. I think our big thing as far as moving along the timely manner was getting from a concept to an actual plan to do something.
Now, staff brought up to me some concerns about timeline if we were to go. Again, I love my planning friends, but there were some concerns that we couldn't get it through planning commission based on some of the dates. So there was thoughts of just keeping it within the council, within this MDA, kind of like we've done in others. Are you okay keeping it in commission at that timeline and extending that out, or?
Well, to be honest, we haven't looked at that part of it, that's a great point, because that is a whole nother step and there's kind of months in between. We had set a target, I believe it was April, for actually completing the permit for the first building or two.
Right.
And that's already signed in the repurchase option.
So can we get through that? I guess that's my question to staff, is that doable, getting through?
If you go through planning commission, I don't remove the rules, unless we have some special process. What I put in that comment was, we might have to allow a building permit review before we have a site plan review, which is totally not what we really want. So, that's where we suggested maybe it's just at the city council level, the site plan, so that the building permit can move forward in a timely fashion.
So, and part of the issue is you're gonna re-subdivide this, and there's that whole process that goes through, and I don't know where that
Site plan
goes.
process, the subdivision process, and then when they come in, they'll have conditional use.
I'm trying to find that balance of, cause our planning commission will do a great, they'll come at this with walkability, some walkability.
The heavy lift for us guys was that under the development agreement, there was a buyback right between now and the end of January that was just explicit, right? That you could do it for any reason. We just wanna get past that before we invest a lot of money and time, and we feel like we're heading in that direction. Like the spirit of and the communication that we've had with both staff and with the council has been fantastic. We're not really worried about being able to come back and say, hey, because of these processes, we need to extend a date and have some kind of agreement that we work on. That's not really something that bothers us. We just wanna get past that unilateral right of the city to just buy it back regardless of circumstances, and this MDA is that. So if we can get to that stage, I think we're okay just working with you guys through changing the dates as we need to.
Okay, I'm comfortable, I like it, I love it, I think
I'll
it's,
adjust the dates in the amendment,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
to extend it further.
so I would like to see in the MDA then, like I said, reference these renderings, right? We want to make sure it looks like that.
Consistent.
which is.
They'll be included, they're gonna
Right,
become.
yep, that'll be included.
it's in there.
And then I know we talked about the 35%, I'd like to be, that that's a guarantee, right, that is,
We've already agreed to that, but we can put that in.
I guess it did just make sure.
I don't have it in the current draft, it was a note that we
Right.
talked about internally and
And that's why I said, I'd just like to make sure that. Restaurant or entertainment's in there, right?
and that's at 35% of
35%
Total
of the
fan
total
base.
square.
Total with
Total square.
entertainment and restaurant.
Do we have
And a
performance
minimum.
dates?
That's what we were.
They are in
That's what
the,
we're just trying to, yeah.
Not
Yeah,
in this
they're
draft,
in
but in the,
this section.
I think,
yeah.
They have to have
The other idea.
building permit, land disturbance by certain dates, those kind of things, so yeah.
That's one thing we kinda.
We talked about that
recommended in there
maybe
was,
to-
instead of having the footing and foundation by April or whatever, we could put a trigger date and say, if you go to.
that was the old language,
Yeah.
that's not what's in the
Yeah.
extension, it's actually pulling a land use disturbance permit.
Let's do that, okay.
I would say
As long
as
as we get that to them.
Maybe staff
That's-
works
Is that
with, and then
something
sets dates and then that you're comfortable that it's not gonna stress either side too much. Is that a fair way to put it?
Another thing, and Aaron, we didn't talk about this specifically, but we can do the subdivision, site plan, and your building elevation reviews concurrent.
Oh,
They don't have to be,
that's fantastic.
sequential, so.
So you're good with staff working with the developer on what those dates would be and then just bringing a draft of the MDA back?
Yep.
Okay,
What I might do actually is, because we have an old MDA, we have a fourth repurchase option that's already signed. And then this amendment to the MDA, I might cancel all prior agreements and just put everything in one document. So that might be a
Yeah.
little bit easier to work with.
that would be clear.
I like it.
Yeah. Amended and restated. 2.0.
Aaron, thank you for working with us on
You
this.
bet,
We
guys.
understand this has been not what we all first planned, even you, but I think this is
We're gonna
great.
get there.
So do you feel comfortable then with
Yeah.
the directions
I
we're
do, I
given
feel
and-
very comfortable, I know that my team will as well, so I feel like we're heading to that. What will be the step for us to actually sign then this new agreement MDA? Would that be public discussion in the council, next council meeting?
We need to go through planning commission first, because we're changing some of the land uses. And then it'll go to city council after that, but we have to do all the noticing, and they do.
Okay,
We'll push it through.
We wanna try
Yeah.
and be expeditious.
Yeah, we want to as well.
3 to 5 weeks, something like that.
That's why I think changing these dates as we,
Yeah.
as we look at the fact,
Force.
we can re-amending and do it all in one agreement, so.
I think we all have the same goal.
I feel it.
okay.
Okay?
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate
Really
it, Aaron.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
support, guys.
Thank
And your
you.
patience, because we worked through this over the years.
Great work, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening, guys.
Look for a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn special council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll hold tight till 6 minutes.
Look, that one was early.
Yeah.
Keep that.
I would
just,
Tiffany, you just stop.
yeah, they don't.
We're back on.
Good, ready?
Okay,
When you use your card,
good
You
evening,
can
welcome to our city council meeting, work meeting for Wednesday, January 11th.
just to
We're gonna get right into, it's got a big
exchange rate on
agenda.
that day.
We're gonna start on
So you get that
1.1, review of this evening's agenda. Any comments, changes from staff or council?
No, just that you're all keeping your current assignments, is that correct? Were you?
That's on the next one, yeah, we'll bring that up in 1.2, yeah. Okay, future agenda items, we'll move on to that. Any future agenda items?
I've got something. So I got the pleasure to go up to Mountain Ridge High School and enjoy that entrance and exiting their facility. There, I know the solution's temporary, but I just wanted to look at what we had as options or what our responsibility or obligations on traffic and safety and exiting and entering that facility with the new roads happening and the new development there, what the long term looks like, maybe even shifting some roads. I know their idea of maybe shifting that south or that north entrance to that actual three-way intersection, a T intersection, but I don't know what that looks like with the slip lanes or the detention pond or what that looks like there.
Creates
There-
a signal application,
Yeah.
so that will work a lot better.
And that's one thing they thought about, so I don't know, just looking at those options, but just future agenda item.
Yeah,
So-
we meet, traffic committee meets once a month, and I think that is a standing item on our traffic committee is Mountain Ridge traffic.
Gosh.
So we've done a handful of things to try to make it better. It's just a hard thing to unload.
So you're looking for a work
Maybe
meeting
just a work
to talk-
session, just talk through some
Update
options,
them on what
yeah.
you've been talking about.
Just 'cause we're getting hit up by
Yeah.
questions from the district now, from our the electeds at the school district, so
And it's a great, what you've done is great, like traffic wise, and accidents wise is great, but
The hardest part is what's warranted.
Right.
And that is
and
the
that's
challenge
adjusting
with
the
it,
road
is-
will-
and that's the challenge I made to the traffic committee, to the group as a whole, is to look at solutions that we could potentially implement when an ideal solution may not be warranted. What could we do outside of that to make it better? And so we did a couple of those, like over at
on top of Butterfield.
Fort Harriman, the signs in the middle of the street, right? That's one of those kind of things, so.
Yeah.
and they just asked, that you're probably talking to them, but they brought up, like, they were talking about swapping. What were they saying?
That north entrance, yeah, well,
But this was at the new school,
oh,
as they try to move forward with the new school, they're trying to,
with the
there's
flex
a couple
school.
of different, with the flex school. Which one would work better for us? I think there's a desire from the district to work with us to, which is gonna create the best traffic pattern, if that makes sense. So that's what he was,
Yeah.
how do we wanna design that new flex school on that property to help us?
So we might have some
traffic.
input there.
I think the new flex school, from what I saw, the school districts have to bid on that project.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
we talked with them at the staff level and they're
Seeing
well
that-
down that path.
Might be good to have a couple of those who are asking the questions attend the traffic committee to talk about it.
Do you wanna invite your friend Daryl?
Then it can be a
It's not
discussion
the
rather
school.
than.
Mountain Ridge is at the school.
Well, he's now the second vice pres, so, as of last night.
school.
Oh.
Again, this was the concern we raised with the district when they said, hey, we're gonna put this other school here, is that traffic is already a
Right.
nightmare. It's not, adding this school is not going to make it better.
Right.
Start and stop times are gonna have to change for that.
Maybe this is a bigger picture. I think we need to get back to a quarterly meeting with Bryce now, and maybe this is a different, let's try to get that back on the calendar. A
Yeah.
couple of us, and maybe
And
we will
even
bring
some
in.
district reps and stuff.
Another thing's really helpful, we can have our GIS people go down and fly the drone over it, just a couple of days.
And
We can
get
just
some
watch it on high speed.
Actual patterns.
Loading and unloading, see it, well, pretty much unloading, loading works, cause it's coming off the road, but unloading, maybe even after.
It's still pretty, some of those signals, I know, UDOT coming on and off Mountain View, but going on to Mountain View and southbound was,
Loading and unloading, none of them work well.
Yeah.
Even the morning doesn't work well. And that's my concern, and we expressed that with the district staff, but, you know, this was the location they own, this is where they're going, so it's kind of. To hear now from that side, I don't know, they may need to get on the same page.
yeah, they see some headache there, so, yeah.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I got a lot of questions and comments and excitement about this week was potholes. So if we could have an update just on what our policies, procedures, timeframes, how we're gonna deal with that, temporary, permanent solutions, all that kind of stuff. The roads are starting to like fall apart, and they're getting worse
Tied
every day,
into
so,
the general road maintenance conversation.
yeah. Just specifically, I think there's residents who wanna understand,
Why we're not there shoveling.
Right, yeah. why wasn't it patched yesterday, right, that kind of stuff.
We're also creating a webpage dedicated to that, and we'll push that out through all of our social
Great.
media avenues that will guide them to that page that talks about the process, talks about the current situation, just to keep them up to date with why things are the way they are and when they will
Potholes, we
be.
have one for resurfacing, the difference between slurry and chip seal and lime, and
Got one
it
for
is
snowplows.
necessary and it helps
Parking,
prevent
snowplows.
potholes from happening if we do the chip seal and last longer.
Right. So, I just,
So
kind of
we're
update on that, just
When-
understanding what's
because
going on,
they
I
want it
think.
done right now and you can't do it right
The
now,
January 25th.
so, yeah, thanks Blake.
It doesn't
for all
have to be
that.
long, it
Just-
doesn't have to be.
Just so you're aware, right
crazy.
now, I know we've pulled in extra crews besides streets to do pothole repair, but this has been a tough winter.
For every
No.
jurisdiction, yeah.
No
It's-
criticism of
it is.
anybody, we
I
get
have them
it,
in my city.
It is.
but I just wanna be able to,
Information and education,
Yep,
people don't
that's
understand.
what
We'll be able
people
to speak
want.
to, we need to be able to speak to it, I had to come ask me for this week about how the
Exactly.
process is.
Yeah.
Well, believe me, I think a lot of us are driving and seeing this road, it's like, what happened to
Main
this
Street
road?
56.
I know, it seems
What
like every
happened to
day
this
it's
road?
like,
But
it's a little worse, so. I just wanna be able to talk to that, and then, second thing was, my understanding is that some of the equipment that we have, I think it was a conversation you and I had just at the restaurant the other night, right? Some of the equipment is a little older than it should be because of supply chain issues, getting replacement trucks in, that kind of stuff. Again, there's not any, I don't want anybody to read into this, there's no judgment here or anything like that, but I'd like to understand if we've looked at, discussed, considered other vendors. Have we looked at Ford, Chevrolet, General Motors, Dodge, other providers, what their timeframes, what their costs are? Is there something specific to the equipment, some specification that we need that others aren't meeting? I just wanna understand a little bit to see if we can find another way to solve this,
That's a
maybe.
good point, cause is this gonna continue indefinitely, like this is a compounding problem?
Yeah.
Do we bring some others in for that year and you move them out and go back to what you had when it's feasible?
And again, I don't really care which equipment we use per se.
It-
just-
it's more
we just need to
cost-effective
have equipment
for
that's
maintenance to
functioning.
have the same stuff, right? You don't have to.
I agree, right, have the fleet the same, right, it makes sense, but I don't know if there's differences in costs and service plans and warranties and, all that kind of stuff. I just haven't heard any discussion about alternatives, and so I'd like to understand that a little bit better. And I'll say nice things about everybody later for all the great work that's been going on. This is-
I've had no complaints in my area about roads and stuff. Things are
Do you have anything future? The one thing I will ask, that staff's asked that I bring up, council, committee assignments for this next year. Any desire to change them, or are we okay just bringing them back would it be just a consent, or do we even need to do anything if we're not changing?
I think they just need it for every January, they just need to know if you're making a change or if you're keeping it
Any
the same.
desire to change anything? I have no desire. Any,
Well, I think we should look over it, cause a lot of those committees may be changing depending on how we address them today, right?
Oh, no, your other.
Well, I know that, but
Yeah.
if it's all the city staff ones that we just kick off of our agenda or are moved out,
Well,
there's
that
gonna be
might
some
change your
changes.
time. The time that you have.
just if we move all
So those
the,
are word liaisons to board appointed committees.
those go away, but then you have the other ones that are the regional,
Yeah,
kind
these
of
are
the
all your
larger
regional ones
yeah.
that you
governmental
have
we do.
decided who's sitting where, like your.
Special
city
service districts and all that kind of stuff.
UFA.
I think we
But
should
are you saying
review
that
it.
now you have more time, like some of you might have time opening up where you could do other things?
Possibly, and I don't know if we wanna make changes, but I think a annual review would probably be beneficial.
Don't take my mosquitoes away from me, man.
You can play with those guys all you want.
So much fun. It's such a good group. That district just runs so well. It's great.
So what do we need to do then?
Would you like on the next meeting,
So then
we
it'd just
just
be
bring the
just
list and
meeting,
have
we
you,
would just
you can look through it?
review them at
decide.
the next work
Yeah.
meeting.
That works.
And then it can go on the consent for general or whatever, or
I don't know if
do
we'd
you
have to
even
do
have to go to
that.
consent?
It
Oh,
doesn't
okay,
need to.
yeah, cool.
Unless we make a change.
Yeah,
we
unless
just-
you
Okay.
make a change, if you make a change,
Okay.
it will just get approved on the consent agenda, so.
Okay.
Um,
Put that on board meeting 25th. Okay. Any future recognition, citizen recognition we want to talk about tonight?
I've got two. Mountain Ridge Girls Volleyball 6A champs, I'd like to invite them in. And then also from Mountain Ridge, an outstanding teacher for 2022, Kelly Dehan. Yeah. I think just having a city recognition for him would be awesome. Yeah, he's a beast.
We need to do the Harriman Cross Country.
Okay.
It took second, I think, nationally. I want to say it was second. I can't remember. Wow. It was a big deal. And their coach has only been here 1 year in, and he took that team.
Okay, we'll see which one they can come in on, and maybe divide them up a little bit.
Faster. Well, it's more, I would think that too, but it's bigger. Strings versus timing versus people.
That's all for me there. That's all I've noticed.
Strategy, vendor management.
Anything else from you guys? Future recognition, Steve? Okay. Okay. Moving on to 2.1, Collegiate Rugby Shield. I'll turn it to Wendy, and thank you, for being here.
Excited to have them here because they're gonna do most of the talking. I'll just do a little bit of introduction. You all are aware that last year we supported the Collegiate Rugby Shield. It was broadcast 9 times on Fox Sports 1. Over the couple weeks after the initial broadcast. Had really good response. 11 players were actually drafted from the Rugby Shield and are now playing in Major League Rugby, which is really exciting. They have come back, the Warriors have come back to us to ask for another sponsorship of the Collegiate Rugby Shield, as well as a partnership with Utah Warriors. Their ask amount is $25,000, and that's the same amount that we paid last year, just for the Collegiate Rugby Shield. This gets us a lot more as far as recognition at Utah Warrior games throughout the season. And Tom and Nick are here, and they can walk through you've got your presentation up if you want it.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Thank you. I guess that's really where I wanna start is we had a concept, an idea to, something that was missing in Major League Rugby and as the sport grows is to bring all the best collegiate talent from across the entire country and host a showcase here in Harriman City. So last year we had asked you to take a chance on us and be the premier partner of it. And as Wendy mentioned, there were 11 players drafted to Major League Rugby contracts from that event. So it was an overwhelming success. So, and as part of that, we wanted to continue to grow and make sure that we over-deliver for Harriman City. So what we had proposed and the elements that we proposed last year, I think we took a look at that and found more opportunities to really showcase you. Having the mayor on national TV representing Harriman, talking about Harriman, on the kids.
Did that hurt us or help us?
It was tough.
It was tough.
You know what, he's a good-looking guy, in my opinion. I'm not a good judge of guys.
Feelings mutual, Tom. Feelings mutual.
We actually added, in addition, we added Harriman City to every player and every kit on the jersey. As part of that, we added some free clinics for the community, had you a part of the entire week's events. And it was, in our mind, it was a good success. And we're proud to have you as that premier partner and want to invite you to come back and participate this year. Thank you. In addition to that, we'd like to propose extending that reach into the Utah Warriors organization in all of our home games. So we built out all those great digital assets for you. We want another place for more eyes and more fans and more people to see them throughout the Utah Warriors season and as we lead up to the Collegiate Rugby Shield. So thank you. The founder of the event, Nick here, he was the mind that put it all together, and you have some additional input.
Yeah, once
It would be
again,
helpful.
thank you, Mayor Palmer, the rest of the city council, everyone here. Thank you for believing in us. You were part of 11 young men's journey into becoming professional athletes. I think a lot of people in this room might have once had that dream, and now Harriman City gets to be part of that for 11 men. So thank you for that. That's what this is about, is allowing those individuals to get to that next stage and then further giving back to the community like we did with the free clinic. I think we ended up having about 100 kids come out, and this year we're hoping further that we'll have more kids and more people drafted. So just continuing creating this kind of pipeline for everybody to go from a young kid picking up a rugby ball for the first time to becoming a professional athlete.
And with 11 players drafted, I think it was a real eye-opener around the country of the Collegiate Rugby Shield is where you want to go if you want to be drafted into Major League Rugby. So it's we started this doing the right things for the right reasons, and it's really proven to be, it's going to get bigger and better, so.
And just to build on that a little bit, there's an exciting announcement that will be coming out.
We can talk about it, but we can't say what it is, but
Kimball told me we could,
Oh, he could?
yeah,
You have permission?
yeah,
Well, what we need is permission for the mayor to sign
his mayoral
his
declaration.
declaration, so.
So are we not
Do you have your
supposed to-
staff and shield? You gotta-
They're
Um,
embarking on a joint venture.
I feel like I can trust all of you.
But it's
broadcast,
public,
we're broadcasting
broadcast.
I'll
everywhere.
preface it this way.
Okay, preface it this. I'll jump.
They are entering into a joint venture with another rugby club located in Europe,
Yes.
which is really exciting. They're gonna do a grand announcement in France and participate on a global level, so that's very exciting.
Yes, yeah,
Is that good?
that's true.
Is that
Yeah,
good enough?
flights are booked and
They invited me to attend, but I'm not,
that's true.
I'm not.
That is
Y'all
true.
wouldn't open the budget for that, but.
Yeah, our goal is to become the epicenter of rugby in
Now,
North
what is that?
America and
Yeah,
have any affiliation in
to get
France.
more.
I think it's-
But we're working on
Well,
some other stuff. We're working some other stuff
Thank
to,
you, yes.
to go with the announcement though.
Yeah, I figured you said it, yeah, okay,
So we're gonna do some other announcements with that
yes,
next week, I think it's
Yeah.
20,
the 20th.
22nd.
so we're filming a spot with them next tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't gotten back to Hannah yet, so.
Kimball will get back to you. I have a message from Kimball to you. He'll get back.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, we're very appreciative.
So if council is amenable to moving this forward, we'll work with Kyle to find money, transfer money. One place
So
to another.
that's always the question is
Yeah.
where's the money coming from? Does this take away from other things? All those things that were just talked about were great, but the city's not in the business of helping people become professional athletes. Right? So we tell people we wanna be good financial stewards and we aren't fixing potholes until it makes sense and we spend $25,000 on professional rugby. Like what's the end goal for the city is my question, right? Where's the money coming from? What things aren't being funded because we're putting it here? And is it worth it for what we're getting in return? I have an ulterior motive in asking this question because I think it helps towards some other things that we wanna do, but
I know what you're
that's the
asking,
question, right?
It's the economic driver, I
I mean,
think
it's
that's what
great,
you're getting at.
Harriman's name is up there, but we're not a business, we don't get revenue from people visiting a website or anything, like what do we need to advertise, we're a city?
Wendy, do we have market, or Tom, do we have market stats on what it brought in and
Yeah,
what it could bring in?
Yeah, last year we were quoted by Sports Salt Lake that it was gonna bring in about $1 million economic to the the county of Salt Lake, with a majority of it being here in Harriman.
So do we think we captured 10% of
Where,
that?
I mean, where are we capturing that? Like, this is the hard question, whether it's rugby or soccer or anything else, right? And what I always drive try to drive home is if we're trying to bring people out here to spend money in Harriman.
You know.
Do we have data that shows
Tell me
we've
about
actually
it.
captured it here? We're the ones spending this money and Riverton is benefiting from it.
So, Tammy just showed me in the budget, we got 190 budgeted for that scholarships and all kinds of other programs in there, obviously, that's probably where it come from, is that?
Right, it's not
Yeah, so
currently
we
in the
didn't have
budget,
this
so
amount, like
Okay.
this large of an
it
amount
would
in
have to be
there.
transferred from another line item.
Okay.
I think there's another part of the discussion about, I just don't think it's been articulated well. And I'd rather it be more of a plan than an accident of creating an identity of Harriman as a recreation destination. It's one of the things we've talked about, right? Sports, rugby, soccer, mountain biking, all the other kind of stuff we're talking about out here. I think it goes along with that, but we haven't formally said this is who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it and that kind of a thing.
It's almost like a vision.
I'm
My
being
turn.
devil's
I don't- I-
advocate for that
I
reason
don't know, but
because
I guess what I'm saying is that, I don't, I think this is great, and I have no objections to sponsoring it. I just feel like it needs to be, there needs to be a reason for it, other than it's great and we like them and we're proud of the success and all that other kind of stuff. It needs to be part of a more, strategic, meaningful decision, and we should be able to quantify the investment, the return on it, even if it's not an immediate return, but it's building a brand for a longer term return. I can
is it
understand that
part of
too,
the bigger
but
plan and is there a real economic return to the city? What of these dollars are we capturing versus just, I mean, Mountain View Village is not in Harriman. Like what Redemption and Holiday Oil over there get a little bit more?
Well, you get the Come and Go, you get the Arctic Circle, you
I
got.
know.
Yeah, I know. but-
Cowboy Donuts coming.
So I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm not saying that, right, I'm not being negative about it. My point is exactly what Steve just articulated is that it needs to be part, if we're gonna do things like this, it has to make sense financially. We need to show our taxpayers that it is part of a plan and there is a return to the city. If we're saying we wanna save money, we don't wanna endlessly cold patch, I'm just using potholes as the, we don't wanna endlessly cold patch potholes that we're just gonna rip it out in a couple of months and redo it all anyway. It's not even a really good temporary solution, but we wanna save that money, right? But we're spending it on rugby, right? So we just need to have a plan and I hate to say justify, but we have to justify what, show, be responsible and have.
We do, because if I'm a taxpayer in this city, right?
Right.
I'm an elected official, but I pay taxes here. And I wanna make sure that my money's being used appropriately. When I'm looking at budgets down the road and see that there are holes, there are problems, there are shortfalls. In some of our special service districts, we know there's road issues, we've got
I'll give you
problems.
an
And if
easy.
we're gonna, no, just, I don't want anybody to panic, I'm not saying this. If there was a need for the city to adjust a tax rate for something to make up for some of these shortages, I'd wanna make sure that the city has done everything they possibly can to minimize expenses everywhere else before they're gonna reach into my pocket and take more.
Right.
And this is one of those things that falls into that gray area unless we've done the work to quantify why and how it's gonna benefit the taxpayers of the city.
Exactly, and it is a trade-off, right, whether it's 25,000 or 190, that's a big number to me, we need to have it, that's what we're doing for things like that, that's a big number. But it's, why isn't this getting done in your sponsoring rugby, that arguably isn't totally Harriman? So cemetery, we need a bathroom there, $100,000, 4 years of this pays for it. And in 10 years, I haven't been able to get a bathroom at the cemetery. I'm just like little things like that, right? It's the trade-off. It's like, so what we need to show that this is a priority for these reasons and this is what we're getting for it. It's part of the plan. So part of that plan, I said one of my ulterior motives is the Harriman Athletic Complex. If we can do that and this helps us get on the map of those large organizations, we get them to come here, right? That can be part of a bigger plan that way. But right now, we haven't had that discussion, we don't have any of that. This kind of popped up last year and we did it, now if it's gonna continue, we need to, as Steve pointed out, have a real plan, have numbers and data that back up our rationale for deciding to do this versus other things.
And I think that it's gonna, obviously this is the second year, right? Out of those 11, I don't know how many stayed local. I know one kid particularly, he's a good friend's son that got drafted to the Warriors. And it's gonna change his life and trajectory. He's probably gonna build close and live close and that, he's just in Utah County now. But I think the long-term benefit of having it founded here, and if it's the inaugural games every time for this competition, and even if we only captured 10% of that $1 million, it's a massive amount. Even if it's 1%, it still brings us back a return, and it incentivizes the hotels, the hospitality, the other items that are coming. I think we can wrap that up into a nice package and present that to the citizens. No matter how we justify it in this room, we're gonna get raked over the coals when those potholes don't get done in a timely manner, or when we have to budget for another thing. I think you look back at several councils ago and they set that land aside for automobile. That could all have been housing, right? Or even with Mountain View and Riverton they set that aside for a big, large development. You have to have a vision of 5-10 years. In 10 years, that's gonna be the south end mecca for sporting complexes. That facility is not going away, and there may be another facility or other additional things in that area, in that space. So I think we're at the ground level, right? We're in the basement level.
Yeah.
And we're barely getting out.
Thing, we miss the opportunity, it goes to another city or it goes to another location, we don't get to keep it, and then we don't get to catch that revenue down the road. I get it, I just think we should report that.
Agreed.
And I think the opportunities there this year with the year, that's what I like about this, now it's through the season, it's the season thing, there's gonna be more drivers, they're gonna bring more people, they're gonna see us everywhere on weekly broadcasts.
Do we have any
Weekly.
televised games?
They're all televised.
They're all televised.
Yeah.
So, and you've got more popping up in Anthem, in Academy Village, that's all popping in right now. They're working on 3 or 4 buildings right now. I mean, the economic benefits they're coming. They will, this year, we'll probably recognize more this
We
year.
have to quantify it.
Yeah, I think we can, we just
Can't
haven't
say,
yet.
well, we think that it does this.
Right. And I don't know how to get those, I know we can get those numbers, I think we just need to, but we already heard $1 million, so more that's coming now that, what was your, that's 2.5% to recover this.
Yeah, it's
All we
not
have to do is
very
recover
minimal.
2.5% of that spend.
They just have to
And that's
fill
just
up
from the one
area.
event, that was just from one event, this
That's
year
from
now,
the-
25,000 spread out over the season and the event.
Yeah, correct. And I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate that we want this to be a really good choice, and are we thinking it through, and can we help you to achieve those goals and the things that are valuable to the city? So I appreciate this.
There's also the support that we get from the Warriors too, they do a lot for the community that isn't quantified necessarily, but they've given back to the city. Events that we can't, how do you put a quantity on, how do you quantify a free clinic for 100 kids in our community? That's a big deal. So, I'm good to move forward with it. Is that what you each need, is our?
Yeah.
Everybody
So
okay moving forward
I'm
with-
seeing 2, but you want us to bring forward a bunch of information on the capture.
Do we need
We
it
can do
now, or are
that.
we just looking for it at the end of the year? I don't know that we can get that right now.
When do we have to agree to this and pay it?
Well,
That's
the Warriors
question.
need it, the 5 now, right?
We'll work with you, yeah. Typically, it would be before the season starts, which is mid-February.
5,000 right now.
And then the
I have
event
that
is in
the
July.
donation budget. I just need to move some money around from other places. If it's more than that.
So we've got 5,000 in donation now already.
I would love to get some data at the end of this season and see where that market research hit. I mean, I don't think that we will have a problem quantifying and seeing that coming back.
I mean, I would always wanna have the plan before, but, I'm pretty sure I missed
Yeah.
this conversation last year when this was done.
I-
My,
$1 million
Kinda what's-
in retail sales gets us $5,000.
kinda what's going through.
That's the
Sales. Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's not, there's not a dollar for dollar tax revenue. I mean, even if all that dollar spend was in our city, sales tax,
Right.
$5,000, we don't make $25,000 back from that.
This
Yeah,
might
my-
help, this information is, we utilize a platform called Relometrics that does that exact thing. gives you the value of your sponsorship. We do it for all of our partners. So as part of this, we can add you to that. So we do have third-party data and analytics that it's just the facts. This is what the value is, this is what you're getting. That's something that we can set up for you. So, and I feel confident the value it shows will over-deliver.
I'm sure it will too. I just think that's something that we need to have before we write a check. If that makes sense. I just think we should see as much of that as we can.
And, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. As far as the process goes, right, so if it's phased, then, yeah, we're generally supportive of this, and if it, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, 5 or whatever, but if it's phased, generally it's okay, well, we wanna do this, and we can commit to doing that, and we want some deliverables, right, at that time. And between now and the next year, when you ask again, we need a whole plan, right? That's plenty of time to put it into the context of a full plan, rather than having this, otherwise, we've been doing this for, 7 years now. These things come up every single year, we have the same discussion, and it's the same thing next year. We never actually get the plan. Something like this, I think, could be bigger and work into a lot of the other things that we're working on. But we need to have some things to measure.
And there could be different people in a couple of these seats next year, and I guess I just wanna make sure that they have good information if they're gonna make decisions, right?
That's kind of why it's the same conversation.
We would need this at budget season, correct? Some of those deliverables or some of those items.
And we're in a biennial budget, but we'll be rebuilding and doing quite a bit here because you'll have to make some changes probably in that May timeframe. So,
I think having a framework like this will help for other things that we've been hit up for, the bike tour, and, I mean, there's other events that are gonna be coming. If we have
Or other sports
something
teams
established
or-
like
yeah.
this, it works, I mean, we've talked about a whole bunch of things, using our proximity to trails and everything else to do other events. We need to have
We
a
were
framework
talking
for them to work through.
about this a little bit, I don't know, sometime this week has been going by, about our fee waiver policy and what co-sponsorship means and how we handle those types of requests, so that's something that we're working on. Okay, well, so we'll put together more
So
information.
it sounds like we're generally supportive, just need,
We'll get to
I'm kind of looking for a plan, maybe. I think like Jared said, I think it's good to have a kind of a marketing strategy, how we market ourselves through
At
this.
least for this process, maybe a couple benchmarks.
Sure.
Right, to get us over the line for this year, and then knowing this is what we wanna have in place by this time next year.
And even one thing, Wendy, it's gonna be on ours, it's just not, Warriors, but how do they do the advertising and the marketing, but how are we capturing and maintaining those people in the city, and what are we doing when we get the attention on our city at our website, where do we have?
See, and I would love to,
Capture.
I think that's a great, I would love to.
Tell me a business that wanted to come here because they saw us on TV.
What?
Like, that would be awesome.
Or even,
Right.
yeah,
Something like that, but then we talked about it a little bit with, or maybe I just talked to Sandra, but ODP did their combine, one of their combines here. We didn't get it in time, but can we hand out like a little voucher that says, these are the restaurants you can, we're the sponsor, can we?
5% off, 10%
You
off.
get 10% off a Garage Grill, you know, something like that.
Mitch
Go to
just
our
sent me their
parlay.
schedule for that facility, it's incredible.
Yeah.
The amount of traffic that place is driving.
And that's why I said, I think we need to, this is just, it's just the tip of the
It's a- yeah.
iceberg. So I
Well,
would
we
love to
have
see
these
some-
guys for a week, so we can plan and dictate what we want them to
And we have a hotel, I mean, the
participate in.
hotel, I went over to speak to him, I had to go to the
Yeah.
hotel in
You did.
Sandy, right? So
Yes.
when we have our hotel, then I think we need to work towards having them stay here. So I
Yeah.
think eventually it becomes they're here, right?
but even during the season, if we had a voucher card where they go to a game and then they leave the game or before
They get
pregame
10%
or,
off redemption.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Supporting.
This is good, this has been constructive,
Those are
and I
good-
appreciate,
Good ideas, right?
conversation.
Get people to come spend more money in the city.
Yeah.
Come back.
And we understand fully, like, we respect the people of Harriman. This is our soil. You can't, we know good farming tactics, you can't just use up the soil. It eventually runs out of its nutrients. You have to replenish it, through good farming practices. So with that, we will do everything on the Collegiate Rugby Shield side. I was prepared to, throughout the season, with every single player, similar to the Senior Bowl with the NFL. You know how they say headed to Mobile and stuff? Headed to Harriman. It'll be prominent on all 50 players. It'll be one of those things that we can get up, and it's a little piece to it, but throughout everything, your logo will be prominent, as well as I'm working right now. We should be good to go for Fox Sports 1. Prime time, 6 p.m. start, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we should have something good in terms of the kind of viewership.
And I did send, it was a while ago, I sent you all a report on the TV viewership. It should be in your emails. If you search for it, you should be able to find it.
I would like to see what the Google search analytics or something was too about like, where's Harriman? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be kind of fun to see.
And I think just tying all of these, I think there's a great deal of value that we just haven't listed and quantified, right? And I think we need to get that written down, and so we can show the taxpayers that we're being good stewards with their money.
Claire?
Esmond?
I figured.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys.
So I'll get you some information back in the next couple weeks.
That's good.
Thanks, Tom. Thank
Do you need us for anything else?
We're good.
I'll
Appreciate you guys
Okay.
coming
be
in.
in contact.
Okay, appreciate
you
it,
guys.
thank you.
Well, at this rate, we're gonna be down here. Are you timing this? Cause that was definitely.
Those Jared's
Okay,
20 minutes.
2.2.
I talk less than the rest. I just brought it up.
Okay, see, that's why we need a timer.
Hey, Mayor, can you
Yes.
send it down to Blake?
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2.2, discussion regarding the request for the city to take ownership of a private road in the Lake Ridge subdivision.
This is one that'll sound a little familiar to some of you. So this is the subdivision that is just up above Black Ridge Reservoir. It's a long private road. There's a exhibit here that shows it. So you can see the request came in from the subdivision, or the HOA, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, to have the city take over this road, which is private. After that request came in, we came and spoke with council, and it was determined at that time that the road needed to be brought up to the city standard, which is the proper width with the storm drain in the right places, streetlights in the right places, sidewalk, proper curb and gutter, all those things. So the engineering department went out, performed an audit, created a list, wrote a memo, sent it to the HOA, and then the HOA kind of sat on it for a while, and then came back and with the property ombudsman for the state of Utah. And we met with them, and the city attorney, Chase, was here at that time. And looked through some scenarios. One of them was to bring a road up through this area and get rid of that. One was to widen the road. There were several scenarios we looked at. We landed on, the property ombudsman recommended that this section of the road be taken over by the city. And so at that point, we went back to the HOA and said, okay, the same thing still holds. We need to bring it mostly up to city standard. We didn't wanna do anything with this intersection here, so we were looking at getting right of way, sent the list to the HOA. They wrote back with some concerns. They didn't wanna widen the road, some of the more expensive things, there were some concerns with that. And then they came back and just said, why don't you take over the whole road? And so, okay, cancel with that request, but that was the request that it began with. So the timeline that was in the packet, you can kind of see here, I just kind of walked through it, but this kind of goes through where we've been. It's been quite a while, a year and a half, going through these requests, and kind of long delays between emails. This is an exhibit out of the audit that was performed. This was in the last presentation that was given to the council back in December of last year, December of 2 years ago. And these are some of the key items that they would need to bring up to standard, and it is fairly expensive. So we looked back through the options and gave you a handful of options here with this request, and one of them would just deny it, and then we talked about transferring portions, different variations of that. We since this had come in, we saw that the cost for maintaining a road is about $11,000 per mile per year. So we took the length of road that is the connection into Lookout Ridge, which is currently being used as a public road. And took that length, times it by $11,000 per mile per year, and recommended that there was a paying, the city would pay the HOA, and I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was about $3,000 per year. And I know the HOA has some concerns because they can't contract for that much. They requested that we plow all of the road, if they could just do the whole thing. That opens up kind of a dangerous area for the city to get into, allowing HOAs to contract with us to plow roads, especially with our equipment failing, and we're already struggling to get to all of the roads when it snows heavy. This could add on a whole. So these are the options, that's the discussion, it's kind of brief.
I would say one thing that's different from this, from other HOAs, is that
We put them in.
we
this position.
created this through some decisions the city made. If you went back to the map,
Yeah, that second access is the required second access for fire into Lookout Ridge, it's the only other.
and Lookout Ridge existed before this was built. So it was there with this planned, I don't know how they were using this access, it was a dirt road. When we approved this, Lookout Ridge actually made some comments to the city, hey, you can't do this, we use that, and essentially it was, well, too bad. So the response to that's little, it essentially was, well, the decision's already been made, that the response from the city staff at that time.
Which I think is the reason why the ombudsman is saying, look, the city does have some responsibility here because some of it is a public road and there's no way around
And
it.
it could have been avoidable.
But they were allowed to build a private road under and below city standards and all of those sorts of things, so.
But their first, talking to them, their first choice is to gate it off and not allow anything, but we are not allowing them to do that.
There was always a plan to have a gate right here.
It's there.
They have the pillars on each side.
The gate's there, just it's open permanently.
Yeah, the fire marshal would require them to give that code to everybody in Lookout Ridge so that they can get in and out.
So that's why this is different.
Which is no different than where they're at right now.
Yep, exactly.
So to me, it makes sense to, pay the cost of what it takes.
Are they still wanting to maintain the HOA, or are they dissolving the HOA?
They keep the HOA,
Oh, the tennis court amenities, yeah, okay.
And the only way, at least in my opinion, especially dealing with all of these that want us to take them over, and this is the only thing that's maybe different, is that stretch where the city's done that.
Well, let me throw in.
If you bring it up to city standard, then, that's the standard. So for me, it's easy for me to say, I have no interest in taking over the road completely, unless they were to bring it up to standard. But it makes total sense that we pay our portion of maintenance.
I would agree. And that's the biggest issue. I think the estimate, and this was, it was like well over $1 million to do the minimal upgrades we needed them to do.
all of them for the whole road.
I mean, that's what, 25 houses or something paying $1 million
That's why,
bucks, it's just
that's why they
prohibitive for
do
them.
these
I know.
roads, so they save money on it.
I agree, but I think that that just doesn't make sense for those people to come up with the amount of money it would take to fix that. But because it's being used as a public access up to Lookout Ridge, I think we have to compensate
To
them for
that
our
one.
use of the road.
Just that lower section though, correct?
Just for that lower section, but I also think that this is my district and I think I would at least advocate we have a discussion about how much impact have we already had on this road? And do we have any
That's a good point.
accumulated liability that we may have?
To help with the
Well,
standards.
and
Yeah, to keep
Pay
the
for
road,
past
yeah,
maintenance,
right.
maintenance
So
built up.
Brock, the HOA president, and Deirdre reached out to me, and I had lunch with them. And while we were sitting there, they were catching, because I didn't know this, this started happening mainly, prior to my coming on. They have this idea, and I actually like it. Again, we're kind of creating this, and we talk about not wanting to create an exception, but their recommendation, because for them to just get somebody, their cost to plow this was over $5,000 last year, just to plow this. Right, just plow, because they don't get the same, it's gonna cost somebody to go hire somebody more than it costs the city to just, because we have the equipment, right? So their costs were a lot higher. So their suggestion actually was they would, using the same math that Blake used, rather than us pay them a certain amount, they would just like us to maintain the whole thing, including the circle, and they would pay, the HOA would then pay the city based on that same math.
I don't like the idea of city equipment and city people being used contracting to plow private streets.
And
That's
like
not.
Mike said,
And we brought
opens it
that
up
same
to
issue, I
everybody.
brought that
I
same
don't
issue
like
up to
that
Todd
issue.
and Nathan, just because we had, they see the exact same thing. And we, because we've almost created this as well, that's, if we're looking for, we don't want an exception, we don't wanna be, create, you know, a. What am I thinking, what I'm
So
looking
do we
for.
purchase
You're
that
gonna
over
set a
half, or
precedent
do we-
A
for
precedent.
others to do it. This is different than any of the
I
other.
would agree. I think it's sort of right. But the reality is, I think our liability is we have impact on that road. And we should pay for our impact on that road. I don't know why it should be more complicated than that. I don't think we need to take over the whole road. They're a homeowners association. They're already paying for services there. They would pay the same rate for the services. They're just saying if we took it over, it would be cheaper. They could buy a truck and plow it themselves. You know, there's other ways to do it. I just don't think that, leveraging city resources to save costs on private property maintenance that's the decision that I'm uncomfortable with completely. I can't support that. But I would support an annual amount that we pay to the HOA for maintenance, you know, inflation adjusted, whatever that needs to be. I also think that we should have a discussion about how much impact we've had up to this point and possibly a one-time payment to compensate for that too.
I agree with that.
So that would, in my mind, seeing that, that would look like kind of a lump sum payment upfront and then going from there on, that
Or it could even,
27.
or
That's been
that lump sum
5
could be
years, it would
divided
be
out
maybe
over.
$12,000 or $15,000 plus, you know, whatever we're gonna do next year, that kind of
So
thing.
if it's an accumulated, I'm just throwing numbers out of it, if it's been 10 years, it's $1,000 a year, so it's $10,000, and then for the next 5 years, we're paying $2,000 a year.
Something like that, yeah, there's a lot of ways to
However
do
you wanna
it.
work it out, but I think that's fair.
I agree.
Sure. And I think they will want it inflation adjusted, our costs go up every year.
Sure.
We take that direction, so with that, that's why I have to come back for budget.
Figure out how long it's been there. Google Earth it,
It's not super long though, right? I mean, it happens.
2013, we approved the subdivision.
Probably 10 years, yeah.
Almost 10 years now.
When was it built?
It was built.
It was built real
It was built
quick,
that
after,
same
yeah.
year. 10 years. It was right when I.
Okay, move on to 2.3, amending Harriman Code section 1-10-14, disposal of surplus property.
So I'll try and keep this quick. Primarily, there were some code sections we wanted to adjust with surplus where we were required to sell our surplus, first to employees and then to vendors who do business with us. That's not necessarily a way to recoup your best value. As we talked about, how do we show the citizens we're actually doing that? So the proposed changes here address that, and then we also went through and started to address, it's one of the few codes I've seen for surplus property where they did not distinguish between personal property and real property, meaning land you own versus trucks. And so we started to do that. The old code required all surplus to come back in front of you, which seems a little onerous, so we tried to set up a process, so for those de minimis valued items, we would follow a process just to get rid of them. So, happy to answer questions. I think most people at this table have stared at this at one point or.
I've said everything I need to say about it in other venues, forums.
Yep, I'm good with the changes.
Okay, well, we bring it back.
57 seconds.
I did not anticipate
Let's see
the
if we can do
rugby
the
being
next
the
one as
longest
fast.
discussion
That
tonight.
fast.
Okay, item 2.4.
Hey, I'm giving you a way to make this quick.
Are we talking about parking?
Black Ridge Reservoir at the Windy. Forgot this one.
Well, Well, we just would like some answer, some direction here. We have some people that are interested in running a concessionaire up there, renting paddle boards and those types of things, maybe a snow cone machine. Is there any interest from this body in pursuing that? We would go through an RFP process and invite all concessionaires to apply. So it wouldn't necessarily be the ones that have already approached us about it. I've had 2 so far that have approached me about it. That's the first question. Okay,
I don't have a problem with it, because especially if there's gonna be they're coming from out of the city.
My only concern is that statement there, it's an amenity for us, the city, parking's already an issue. It's in your district, it's.
The idea of putting something that makes it more
Sherry's
attractive
now.
to
Sherry's
people to
now,
come
yeah.
up.
Sherry's now, yeah.
No, that one's still in mine.
Blackbridge?
Yeah,
Did you come out like
it'll
that?
be above Emmeline.
No, it's.
Cause I live on Evening Side Drive.
Yeah, but I think you miss it, it goes to Sherry's, yeah,
It goes to
in that map,
Sherry's.
I
that's
think it's
the new map.
Sherry's.
It goes behind my house?
Yeah, there's only like 2 streets behind you and then
Yeah.
those are,
It's just right there.
Just
I don't think so.
It's right there.
right there.
Is it in Sherry's?
yeah. So it's her problem, she's not even here. No.
Blackridge is in Sherry's district?
Yeah.
To keep it balanced.
That's awesome.
So
I didn't see that.
is it needed, do we need concessions, do we need rentals? I think it's great.
It's my neighborhood, whether it's in your
Yeah,
district or
I
not.
know.
And I don't,
You're gonna get the complaints.
yeah, I don't want anything up there that's gonna make it,
A bigger of a draw.
yeah, a bigger draw.
More trash.
Yeah, more, just it
Now-
makes everything worse.
Yes.
we'd also contract with them to take care of all of the trash. So we wouldn't have our seasonal staff there.
Ooh.
What if they had parking enforcement?
Well, and that's another
In
discussion.
previous.
And
dis-
Anthony brought that to you guys, I think in September, October.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
To find out what your interest is in parking, and then we also have the alternatives that Blake put together with the expanded parking lots and the costs associated with those are all in your packet. So,
Let's take the easier ones.
Did.
you're just in time.
Glad you're here.
I can't hear it.
Previous.
You guys are gonna have to arm wrestle.
Sherry's here to
Previous
settle things
discussions
down.
about concessions is, do we charge them a big enough fee that covers the RFP process and all the staff time to do this every year, right?
Well, I think you RFP
It's not
3
just.
years or
I mean,
3 to
or
5.
3 to 5? Yeah.
I guess the problem would be, what if we say yes, and it turns into a free nightmare up there? We have the ability to back out of that then, or are we stuck with it for 3 more years, you know?
No, we would put a cancellation term on it, that they can't cancel on us, but we can give them 30 days notice.
For the people that come out of the area to use the reservoir, I think that there would be a general support for having concessions there. You know, if you've come a long ways, you wanna be able to stay there, have a drink, hang out, not have to bring your cooler, all that kind of stuff, okay, great. You don't have a paddleboard, you wanna rent a paddleboard, great. But for the impact on all the people that live around there,
Is it gonna
It's
have more
tough.
just by having a concession stand? Do you
Yeah.
think so?
well, it's not
Especially
only
the
the concession
rentals.
stand, it's concession plus
Rentals.
rentals.
Rentals, yeah.
And now it makes the reservoir more
What's
accessible
this-
for other activities, right?
What's the safety on that too? I mean, brand new paddleboard person out there in the middle of the lake or the reservoir. you know.
That's not our problem.
I know, it's huge,
It-
not for us, but I'm just.
It's their risk, but it's our.
It's not our problem, it's still, yeah.
Yeah, it's our head, that's a good point.
Still get
We've al- I mean,
We had
people have
somebody
already
safe from
done-
drowning out there just last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
We've had people die up there.
So that's the first question, do we want to allow concession?
So apparently no yet, no right now.
Sounds like no.
Kind of goes hand in hand with the other,
Yeah, with the-
cause
yeah.
the question is really, do we want to drive more participation up there, drive more traffic up there, or do we not? And I think that the first thing that brings more people up there, just, we can even go up there and rent things, we can just have food up there.
We
It
can
just
stay all
continues to expand
Yeah.
the amenity.
There's currently no cooking up there, right? Open fires or anything? Okay.
They're
I've-
Well, they
closer
bring-
to
they
can-
major
they can bring
roadways,
grills.
right?
Okay.
And
No
Barbecues,
charcoal.
no charcoal.
capture tax dollars, like, it's secondary water that we turned into a local
Amenity.
public park. And it's just a terrible location for all.
So what's the other?
Can we
part of
move the
discussion?
reservoir?
Well,
But it-
Todd
that is
did an
district.
exercise with planning commission where they turned the reservoir into a cemetery.
That was a conditional use permit.
It was an interesting discussion, I'm sure.
I'm not
So-
gonna say.
So what's the other part of, let's move on, what's the other part
That
of the
could be a
discussion?
fun.
So that's the first
Parking.
question. The second question is
Yeah.
about
We already
expanding
had that
parking. The costs associated are quite expensive. There's the lower piece that we can add parking. Justin and Blake have been working on this piece a little bit, so maybe they can speak more to it. Or just expanding the parking as it is at the reservoir. The costs were 500 to 900, depending on which direction you wanted to go.
I can't spend that much money.
I can't either.
Can we sell that many Snickers bars?
You could charge to park in there.
Yeah,
And
so
also have
you
to
know,
then enforce in the neighborhoods to make sure they're not
I'm
parking.
gonna ask a bit
be
of a
$100
rhetorical
million
question, how much is
to generate
coming to
$500,000.
A lot of the cost, I'm assuming is.
I've been doing this math a lot lately.
Cause there's a lot of parks that they do overflow
Half of a half
parking,
goes,
just
we get
gravel,
buck
right, or
tests.
loose.
That's pavement,
That small,
curb gutter, that was
That's
the
the whole thing,
proposal.
yeah, that's all.
Sales tax revenue.
that's the majority. So
Is the population.
my
as well.
sidebar is, I mean, but as far as costs go, so the
All the
estimate
all
we
the
have,
improvements,
what's the total?
the total on, this is the parking lot expansion as it exists today.
And it's like 25 spots.
Do you have that image?
You should,
So of 600,000, how much of that is pavement?
128,000 is asphalt.
Whose fault?
It should be.
Right there. So you're, this is this number, this
Yeah.
expansion here where we
Yes. So
add
there's
the,
your additional stalls.
So I said, I'm assuming the majority of the
So
cost
about
is
54 stalls.
grading and
There, it looks like
there's
a
a lot
lot
of
of
parks
grading.
that do, overflow parking and just gravel.
So your asphalt's 128, your curb and gutters 35, I'm rounding. Like round numbers. Excavation is a lot, 81,000. Improve the landscaping.
I guess what I'm asking is there a way to do it on the cheap that gets some more spots?
This lot, probably not, the
Probably
lower
not
one,
the
yeah.
lower lot, yeah. Can you go to the next slide, John? That's
And
the
then-
cost. This is the lower lot.
keep going.
Oh, we can spend
That's-
more money.
There you go.
You gotta be kidding me.
So that's the, I think, how many
Well, it's like
stalls
across
are
the
there?
street parking?
This is down.
It's down below it,
Below
yeah,
it.
right before you get in there.
Right off of Summit there.
Oh,
You know where the
yeah.
house is there? Right next to that,
It's really steep.
18 stalls.
But you can do a stair challenge there, right?
Another chair.
I know where that is. I know where that
It would
is.
draw more people.
No, that's just the
The
lower
other
section's a
one.
different cost number.
The
Right.
54
Yeah.
stalls.
Stuff pretty bright.
How much
Yeah.
is this one?
This one had a lot.
This one's almost 800,000.
Oh, 800? Wow. Oh,
For 18 stuff.
No,
like Jared said, could we grade and gravel it? And but then you still gotta do
I
the
still
roundabout
think
traffic.
you're gonna have,
Yeah.
it maybe brings it
Sounds
down
like
a
most-
couple
Brings
hundred
it
thousand.
down your
Yeah,
asphalt
grading
costs.
and yeah,
Did you
site,
saw-
site.
I'll charge for it.
Can't make louder because it's an improved surface.
Can you surplus that land? I'll buy it and I'll charge a parking fee.
Cause you will get, if you heard do it, you'll get first.
So what I'm hearing is
Yeah.
no interest in expansion or additional parking at this time.
And I think that first
Unless
conversation
it's
goes
free.
hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cause we need this to,
Find some grants.
yeah,
We still think we can afford it.
yeah.
Not even that you don't have interest in it, it's that we don't have the budget for it.
And it's probably not the most
It's not
financially
the highest on my
responsible,
list.
yeah.
we got potholes to fill.
Yeah.
Well, this would probably be parks money, but you have we have other parks needs far beyond this.
Oh, way
Yeah.
beyond that. It's just,
So we just keeping the status quo then?
Okay, for that, we've still got more to talk about.
I would say
Give
though that,
57
let's put it this way, I think that when it comes to status quo, I think that there's a reasonableness to what people's expectations are now. It's been going on for a while. They understand there's gonna be some parking issues, they understand there's gonna be some access issues, they understand there's gonna be some noise stuff, but I think people have kind of reached an acceptance with that, and I'm not necessarily sure that there's any advantage to shifting those dynamics very much up there.
Another thing that I think too is messaging. I think we always have to make sure our messaging is, this is a secondary water reservoir. This isn't a great amenity that's
This is an
just for
open body of
recreation for
water,
all of
not a
our
swimming
people.
pool.
Exactly, the singular purpose of this is 100% to store water for our secondary system. And so I think as long as we keep focused on that and not call it, not highlight all the cool amenities,
think that's great.
that we have
So
to just say that's what the
that
purpose is.
leads into a good question that I have, in that we've been treating the water for algae and for snails and for what else, Justin?
Basically those.
Okay.
And we're doing that because
Because the
it's
snails
open
are
reservoir.
the ones that cause the swimmer's edge thing, right?
Swimmer's
Yeah,
edge.
they cause issues in our distribution system.
Right.
What's
Yeah,
that?
we're only doing it because of the secondary water stuff, we're not treating it anything more for the
Not
swimming, right?
recreation, no.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So the only money we're spending was to keep it good for secondary water.
right.
So, well, it's because we're using more water now than we were. So, yeah, so it was a year or two ago, we came to the council and said, what level do you wanna treat this to? We said, treat it to maintain the secondary water. And so that's the level that we're treating it at right now. And so our costs have gone up, but we're treating more water because we're
Yeah, and
using
plus
more. So,
chemicals.
The anti-moss thing and
And
the
the
algae,
algae.
yeah.
And that's why you still get swimmer's itch, or they still have issues up there when they go swimming.
Wouldn't be swimming in that.
No, nor would I, but.
You get everybody, okay?
You could put some signs up there that say,
So,
swim at your own risk and here's all the things that can.
It's
do
like,
you,
you get stuck
Make
on.
those signs.
do you want us to continue looking at
Sorry.
like parking enforcement?
Trying to be
with
creative.
having a paid parking situation there, or do you just wanna leave it like it is?
I have no desire.
Okay.
Because again, I think that if you create a paid parking situation, you have an unintended consequences of people pushing people out on the streets, which makes the problem worse.
It goes probably to your next question. on
permit
parking
parking?
permits.
And
Yeah.
communications sent out a survey, so I'm not sure who's gonna present on it. You, John? Okay.
So.
Like
Blake.
present.
Oh, I have it.
Go towards Nathan, cause I thought he needed it.
So we sent out a survey to about 400 households in the current permit area and some streets surrounding that are currently outside of the area. We received 65 responses, so it's about 16% of those we sent it out to. About half and half were inside or outside the current area. We had 2 tracks of questioning depending if they lived in the area or outside the area, but a few questions we asked to both parties. We asked how many cars they have in the household. You can see the results there.
That's not in the engineering.
So, we asked everybody, how often do you have difficulty finding parking near your home? The overwhelming majority say never. That goes up from never to nearly every day. You can see those steps there.
Are you able to pull for addresses and proximity, or is that not in the
Just the
capture?
green and the red,
Yeah,
live
2 to 3
inside,
times per
live
week,
outside.
is that, what's the?
And those are interesting, cause they're outside the area.
Outside the
What's her
area,
name?
but they have parking.
Yeah.
No, the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a
the
good point,
swimmer,
they're outside the area.
Oh,
next
right.
door to her house.
But they could be in
Yeah,
the,
right,
in the townhouses or in the HOA areas where it's tighter communities and they're not on street parking or, yeah.
It might have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, nothing to do with the
Yeah,
reservoir.
so it's a handful that have significant parking issues, but most of them seem
Outside
to
the
not.
area.
So this track of questioning now is for those who live inside the area. We ask if they currently own a parking permit, 94% say no. Of that 94%, 91% have never had a parking permit.
So they're just parking in the driveways.
Satisfaction with the current program, it's about even.
It's like 6 people out of the respondents have parking permits.
It's our parking permit program is very low,
Yeah.
Most people
just a handful.
But the infractions, are we seeing infractions? Or complaints, okay.
I don't think anything's changed for you.
That is so funny.
So these 2 questions are satisfaction with the program overall, basically how much they like it, and effectiveness in accomplishing its goal. So its goal we defined as to restrict non-local residents from using local street parking, thereby allowing only local residents to park there. 2/3 feel it's effective, that doesn't mean they like it, but that's kind of where that stands. Should the number of parking permits per household change, a little over half say should stay the same. About 11% decrease, and about a third increase. Satisfaction with the process to obtain additional permits, about half of them seem a bit relatively indifferent. About a third satisfied, about 20%.
Cause they're not using it
Satisfied.
anyway.
Yeah, they're not using it, so
not
it's like,
65 responded, so.
The people, like, I'm just curious, 50%, are those the same 50% that have never had a permit? I mean, 91% of the people don't have permits, and yet they're commenting on the process, whether it's good or bad. You never even, 91% never even had one.
Yeah, I think we just hear a couple
goodness
little
gracious.
loud voices of people who are dissatisfied, and so I hate making a
Policy
sweeping
on- yeah.
policy over just a very handful. Their voices are important, but we have to make policy for a large amount of people. I don't think it warrants a change, so.
The only change I would advise is don't do it. Why have the money and the expense and the time and the administration of
Yeah.
doing a program that nobody's participating,
Well,
or very few people are even participating in?
I'll tell you why. Because of the problems we had without it.
Just being able to have the signage saying it is a
Makes it
program.
Right,
It's
and
perfect.
if there is a problem, the times there is a problem, then there's a solution to the
There's a
problem.
tool.
And the problems that were there before were horrendous.
Right.
I mean, my first couple of council meetings that year, this was 2016. I mean, there was 100 people in here every meeting yelling and screaming at us.
Well, that's how we get
Right.
people to make things, Jared.
So
No, but it's true.
my point there is, and I don't like this at all, you guys know where I stand on all this, we shouldn't have any of this garbage up there, just no swimming and it all goes away. It's still a park, they can still play in the sand, they can still do all those things, but if you're gonna have it, unintended consequences, there is no solution that alleviates everybody's problem. There is no solution that does that for everyone, it's, as Sherry put it, what works for the most amount of people. The fact that we aren't having all those complaints and that it works for the majority of people, I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you're gonna change something, is there a real reason to change it? Is there a problem that we need to fix, right? Or is it an irritation to a couple of people?
Outside of this survey, have any of you gotten any calls about parking problems? I mean, I got a couple calls of, I've had a couple
There's
calls
always
about
a
some
few.
noise and some kids being out there late and shining
That's why I say
lights and
having it
stuff.
when there is a problem and there are some problems, then it gives them a tool to enforce things.
That's like onesie twosies.
Right, and then there's always the couple that don't like it cause there's not enough permits for all their family to park there and somebody, they think it's a personal park. There's always those sorts of things, the unintended consequences, but by and large, as much as I hate it and I think it's an expense that isn't needed, if you're gonna allow all this stuff to happen at the reservoir that you're allowing to happen, this has solved those problems.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
And if it goes away, we go back to 2016. This question was, how can the current program be improved? We presented several options as well as an other fill-in box. We allowed respondents to fill in or to check as many as they feel apply. The text is kind of small here, so I'll read from top to bottom. Expand the area subject to the program, decrease the area subject to the program, improve permit enforcement, enforce possibilities of offenders being towed, allow residents to have more parking permits, allow parking permits to be transferable, implement the program only during certain times of the year during the busiest seasons, improve the process for getting temporary guest parking, other no improvements needed. Third one down, improve permit enforcement is the most popular response here. Of those people, they were asked, are you willing to pay more for increased enforcement? 79% was.
Enough said.
That's how it works.
This is on to the second track of questioning to those who live outside the area. Is there interest in adding your street to the permit program? Overwhelmingly, no. Why are you uninterested? Street parking availability is either not an issue or they don't like the idea of needing a permit to park in front of their house.
And honestly,
It's probably all around.
yeah, I think it's one of those areas where, for the most part, it's not an issue until it's an issue, right? And then you wanna have a mechanism to solve the issue.
If you're, again, for those living outside the area, if their street was to adopt the program, we asked how well the current allotment would address their needs. 2/3 say comment, there were a bunch of comments, we have them listed out here, we can get you a printout or however you want those, but summarizing those comments from both those in and outside the area, by far the most common feedback was that residents should receive a permit for free. Others funds to pay for the program should come from the usage of the reservoir, not from permit fees. Irritations having to obtain guest permits, especially for large groups, that one was fairly common as well. Coverage areas too large, parking isn't an issue outside of the holidays. And then conflicting requests that enforcement should either increase or be by residents.
Increase when I want it to.
I don't wanna pay for anything, I want.
My neighbors are having a party and I can't park in front of my house, I'm towed.
I get that feedback personally, like, we don't want you up here unless we call you, and then you better be here right away. And then go away, and only do what I tell you to do. So,
You are a public servant, so.
right, so is there anything else out of that?
Anything else from the survey?
Discussion on that, or we're
Leave it
just,
be?
Good job, that was
and
really
hopefully we'll not bring this back to you again.
I think putting
This
a few signs up there that say potential health hazards of swimming in this pool will help tremendously.
Swim at your own risk.
List the potential health hazards.
There's a lot of places I've gone to that are open water like that have exactly those
So
things.
in June, when people start calling you all, just tell them, we've already had this on the agenda this year,
I'm out
we're
of
not
town.
gonna, we can't
Just so
talk
you
about it
know,
anymore.
this
List all
water
the
comes from
waterborne
Utah lakes where they have
moratoriums.
toxic algae.
I have this
Thanks, John.
standard answer always, it's just, this is a secondary water reservoir, so, how it is.
So our current parking enforcement program is semi-effective, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Because of
It's gotten
participation
better
should.
over
It really
Last year.
has, it's gotten better, and, I wasn't here when they determined how big it should be, and that's, so I don't know how we came to that, but I was here when it became a problem, and this has helped solve that, and like Jared pointed out rightfully, so it gives us a mechanism, because if we don't have it when we go up there, and July 4th we'll be up there, it's everywhere, and we can't do anything about it, and residents can't move, and there were times literally it was locked down. Driveways, you name it, and amongst the other problems of people simply walking by and doing.
And if 95% of them or whatever aren't paying for the permit, it's the other 5% that are right there that
That are affected.
it's a huge issue for them that's affected and it gives them a way to, it's not perfect, right?
Agreed. And of course, we're not collecting enough fees to cover our whole permit process.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But it's stable up there now.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
every year is about the same.
They were saving more
Yeah.
money in
Keep the
responses.
status quo and don't bring it back.
We have a couple
Unless
weekdays,
there's a
we'll
big
take-
problem.
Direction understood, thank you.
Okay, can we get 2.5 in before?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Okay, 2.5, youth and
Um,
active agent.
So this is something that Councilmember Warren brought to us a couple months ago, asking for more information on this. There are some cities that are doing, Orem is just now implementing a youth and teen program. They've recently purchased an old elementary school that they're using for their programs. What I really wanna get from you is Old City Hall's availability after Slick leaves. Previous councils had talked about selling that facility. My recommendation is we use it for some of these programs and services. I can put together a plan. I don't wanna spend a lot of time working on this if there's no interest in a place for these programs to happen. And that,
Love the idea of a place. I'd like to hear more about cost.
sure,
Yeah,
Because
for
you
me,
can
it's
pick it
kind
up
of the
a grant.
same,
yeah,
it's somewhat similar to the rugby thing of what's our core responsibility and how many, all these things are good, but how much money do we have to spread around for the program? So if we can do it, if we already have space, if we're gonna have it anyway, if it's not hugely costly, but if we're gonna keep an entire building and it costs, I can't even remember what the dollar amount was per year, it was
Bonnie, do you remember?
100
It's
something,
just right around $100,000.
say $100,000 a year, just
Maintain.
utilities, just utilities, maintenance, and there's issues. Like, if we're keeping it for other things, right, and then it's, what other resources are there for these types of programs, whether it's youth or the aging populations, all those sorts of things, is that the city's responsibility, or is that county?
I think it's a
And
mix.
we need, right, do we need to be working with them for those resources, like, cause once we have a program, then it's hard to take it away, and it only expands, inflation's real for everybody. I would just wanna know costs, like, what are we really committing to?
I just don't wanna get that far into that analysis if you're dead set on selling off the building.
I don't think you, first of all, I say this, we're not making any more land, and there's a facility that's already built, and I know what it costs to build facilities right now. And it's an aging facility for sure, and it could probably use some update on 800 air conditioners or whatever, round up of the thing. But, it's there, and it's a resource that's paid for, it's sitting in our coffers. I think there's some non-quantitative type of, savings, like, if you have a youth program in your community, and you keep some of your youth from detention centers, because there's some productive things for them to be doing, I think that there's a cost savings to the city
Or
for
they're not
that.
trashing the skate park
For,
or.
I think that there is, you know, some savings that you might not actually be able to put an actual dollar sign to, because there is a programmable youth activities in your community. I think that's, you know, a good resource. I don't disagree. I do not wanna spend money for nothing. One of my beefs with the county, say this recorded, is there's way too many services. It's like, oh my gosh, how much more taxes do I have to pay for all of this stuff? So there's issues with that. But I think that Wendy is really good at figuring out how to partner with those types of facilities and say, hey, will you help fund this? If we provide a great facility, that can be our contribution. Can you help bring in some funding for that? And help, we had overflow with our seniors lunch another day, you know, and it's like crazy how I think our need there will just continue to grow and grow. And these people wanna get together. There's something that to be said about seniors and their cognitive abilities if they interact with one another and spend time with one another, which really enhances our senior population here too. And so I think that we're growing at a rate that those kinds of demographics need to be addressed.
I think there's, like you're saying, I think you can go to Salt Lake County Aging and Adult and saying, we're getting quite a ways away from Riverton. But then I think, I look at what Riverton City got with TRCC money.
That's what I was.
Yep,
Yeah.
I think they got $1 million, I think, for where City Hall, like where their offices are right now they got $1 million. I mean, I don't think getting 100,000 to do a new roof.
Well,
and
there's
updates.
multiple buckets we can take.
That's what I'm saying, that's just
funding
one
from.
bucket, that's just, they got $1 million from one bucket.
This is more along the lines that I'd be comfortable seeing it go. I don't want us to just do it off.
No, me either.
We have to, 'cause
Sure.
that's not.
So,
We're eligible for CDBG funds now. Michael has been working with the county on what that process is gonna look like and how that's gonna work, and that is
That'll stay in
dedicated
our
to,
community now,
yes.
yep,
And that can go
So-
towards the seniors,
great.
I can restate though, I think there's three questions. One is the use of the property gonna be exclusively for these programs or will it have other uses? Number,
Yes.
it would just be exclusively for those programs or?
It's
Okay,
another
okay.
community building.
Perfect. Then second thing would be, what percentage of use would be covered by these programs and what would be their contribution to the costs of the building and the maintenance and potential upgrades for it? How do we pay for the programs and their ongoing, concern and what we think might, the need benefit for the community would be. And I think as long as we answer those all in a positive way,
And I did all of this in the previous city that I worked for, so all that's really easy to put together. I just don't wanna go down that path
Yeah.
if you're thinking about selling it as soon as. So,
I'd like to keep,
I think we should keep it, whether it's that or other uses. It's just, I think repurposing that building, even if it cost $3 million to upgrade and revamp and I mean, I don't know.
Estimate a
That's a
few
hell of
years
a
ago.
lot cheaper than building a $30 million building somewhere,
So that included some improvements to the park.
A lot of
fences,
How much was it?
And it was a couple $1 million.
but that's for police, you know.
It was
how-
about
Is there a
one-
substation?
You know how they are.
No. Thanks, Don. We'll talk later.
better than five.
So we'll do some of that work and bring it back.
I'll put all the programming together
Maybe I was gonna
and
miss
then
it,
potential partners.
We're gonna go our
And I know,
Create partners
the
inside
youth council would really like to be
See where I'm
active
singing,
in that,
Vinny?
in some portion of
This
it
is
too.
over
I think
here.
it was
Yeah,
smart
with
when
my
you
good
want to
ear.
start
You're hearing about the
seeing
police
programming
and
kind of look like.
you know how they are, and he goes, yeah, they're just a little bit better than
I've
fire.
had a lot of interest when
We're a
I've
lot
talked
cheaper.
about it with.
Just ask them.
And that might lead
It's a
to
needed aspect.
I mean,
They don't need as much.
Pick up on Steve's point there, I mean, the county will need to extend their reach, right, for a lot of these program things. building more land, tell me what else wants to donate that county that's building there, they could put
Yeah.
money into that to do
I
those.
think
And I
so
think
too.
they will. I think-
I,
Or cover some of it,
yeah, I just
right?
talked to them about it actually, in the ZAP meeting that we had before, so.
And I think this could lead into a bigger discussion about our community space uses. I would like, I mean, Harmonics, for example, had to practice in a conference room the other day because there was a multi-level market. I mean, I know there's a financial consideration, but our community group should get.
I will tell you, as city functions, we often can't use our own building because so many outside groups are using it.
Right. And that's what I said, there's a balance because we do, there is, you need a revenue.
'Cause I'm sure there are residents that are part of whatever group that is, right? Might not all be residents.
Can't have any
Some.
conversations until
It's,
everybody's made
it's a
their
fine
decisions.
line, you can't pick
Right.
favorites.
Right.
So our revamp cost estimates were about 3.1 million, and that was about 18 months ago.
That was
But because we were talking
That's
about
with all
the
the
police
extra
department
toys
in
and
there,
things
that
they
involved a
think
lot of reconstruction for hardening and some BCI requirements that aren't necessary if we're not housed.
And evidence and all that jazz, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's still way
It's a
cheaper
shot.
than.
Yes, it
I'd
is.
say if you get partners and things that could be really good, but we can't do that on our own.
Okay, let's take a break and I'll look for a motion then we'll go into work meeting or general meeting, then we'll come back for work and then close. Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second, motion by Sherry, second by